Hey, it's Alex with Lover Fighter Writer, and this video is going to be all about ChatGPT or AI writing detection software and whether or not these are a big problem for freelance writers. So, as you probably know, ChatGPT is a very popular, well known AI writing software where you can just put in a few prompts and it'll write entire blog posts or ads or even books for you. And ChatGPT is actually fairly new because it was so powerful and also free. It really blew up the AI writing space and popularized it, kind of took it mainstream. But commercial AI writing software were already available for a year or two before that. And I've been using them pretty much since they first became readily available and good enough to be worth using. And something that started happening actually a little bit before ChatGPT came out, and then it became much more prevalent after ChatGPT was released, was different companies providing these AI writing detection tools, as they call them. And basically, these are usually a free software where you can just go on someone's website and they'll have a little text box and you can copy and paste some text in there. Sometimes you can just put in a URL and it'll crawl the URL for you. And then it'll give you a score, usually a percentage or some sort of rating, where it says this is 100% AI written content, or this is 100% human written content, or this is 60% AI written. And the idea is ostensibly that there's something bad about having content that can be detected as being written by AI. People have implied and even outright stated that AI content is not good for SEO, or AI content has problems with Google and Bing and search engines. And there's just never been anything to substantiate that. Google has actually come out and said that they don't have anything against AI written content. The only thing that Google and most other search engines cares about is how good your content is, how correct it is, how helpful it is, how easy to read and accessible it is, and how much authority the website and the author of the article has. And so these are all things that if you do a poor job of just mass producing content with AI, then certainly you will probably not have those things, and therefore Google won't prioritize your content. However, it's very possible to write high quality, authoritative, expert level, super readable, super accessible content using AI. And in fact, when you use AI properly, you can write at the same level or better as you would without the AI much, much faster. And that's what I've been doing. And so I'm going to walk you through a lot of kind of the things that people are saying about AI content detection tools, why I really don't think that there's any issue with them. I'll give you a few examples from my own life and from other people that I've seen telling stories online. And we'll just kind of talk a lot about AI writing detectors and ChatGPT detectors in particular. What are ChatGPT detectors or AI writing detectors? This is a software that looks for specific writing styles and patterns that are commonly used by known AI language models, and sometimes they also look for partial or complete plagiarism. So if you've been using ChatGPT or other AI writing tools for any amount of time, then you may have already started to recognize the fact that most AI writers tend to have specific ways that they write things a lot of the time. For example, one thing that ChatGPT will do a lot is use words like ultimately or something like that in the last sentence of a paragraph. So these are just kind of like simple connecting words that the AI uses to segue from one sentence to the next. And there's nothing like grammatically incorrect about that, but it's not the best way to write most things. And it's also not the way that most humans would write something if they know how to write powerful language that flows properly. And so that's just an example of kind of a pattern or a specific type of language the GPT or ChatGPT language model tends to use in particular. And I see a lot of posts on like Reddit and LinkedIn and Facebook where people are trying to provide value in groups in order to generate leads. And they're very, very obviously written by ChatGPT because it's just like I've just used these tools so much that I just see it as soon as it's like, a short intro and then like kind of a little listicle and then a final paragraph that starts with the word ultimately. I'm just like, yep, that was written by AI. And the thing about those posts is that they're usually very low quality. They usually don't provide any unique insight or any kind of authority. It's the kind of thing that's only going to impress an absolute beginner. And so a lot of people take advantage of that because they can just churn out a lot of content that sounds impressive to people who don't know what they're talking about. And then you can use that to generate low quality leads and low quality clients. And that's what a lot of people like to focus on. Personally, I don't focus on that at all. I focus on using AI writing to produce the same quality of content or better than what I can do by myself, but I can do it much faster and with much less typing. And because I get repetitive motion injuries when I type too much, that is extremely valuable to me. And when I first started using AI writing software, I went from publishing 2 blog posts a month on my own blog to 8 blog posts a month on my own blog. And on top of that, I was able to handle more client work than previously. And that's actually when I started charging more for my client work. So even though I was putting less time into the writing and it was causing me less pain and suffering, I started charging more, and that's when my business really took off. And so these AI detectors are used primarily as free lead generation tools on these websites that provide them in order to pull in customers who will pay for a solution to a non-existent problem. So you might be wondering why people would put out the idea that AI writing is somehow inherently bad, or that AI writing will be punished by Google, or that AI writing is bad for SEO. Why would anyone say that if it's not true? Well, it's very simple. If someone can convince you that your content needs to be able to pass their detections test as 100% human, then that means that you will use their tool to see if it can detect whether your content is written by AI or a human. And that also means that you'll be more likely to turn to them to a solution for that made up problem. So what most websites that offer free AI writing detectors do is they offer either a specific AI writing tool that may use GPT or it may use a different AI language model, or they offer a specific rewriter tool, or they offer some sort of course where they teach you this process. And at the end of the day, what they're providing for you is zero value. They're basically saying that you need to be able to trick their test into saying that your writing is 100% human written. But in actual fact, all that you're doing is adding more cost and an extra layer of complexity to your content creation process and paying them for something that they're not actually providing any value for. And one thing that I've noticed is that this allows middle management type roles in content creation teams to seem like they're more important than they are. Because depending on the size of a content creation team, generally you'll have writers, you'll have editors, you'll have a content manager or multiple content managers who are kind of like editors, but like head editors, and they're the ones that assign things and provide the final check. Maybe they do the publishing or they assign someone to publish. And so sometimes in the mix there, somewhere in between being an editor and being a content manager, you might have someone who doesn't really provide a lot of value to the process, who is basically there to like assign topics and then read articles and tell you whether they're good enough or not. And I've worked with a number of people like this. It's very rare these days that I run into them because these days I charge like at minimum 50 cents a word for my articles. So people who don't know what they're doing are generally not trying to hire me because people who don't know what they're doing don't have successful enough websites and blogs to be able to afford my services. But back when I was charging like 8 to 12 cents a word, I was fairly regularly running into like content managers and editors and blog managers who insisted that I meet these kind of random criteria that had nothing to do with anything. They would have like all these kind of style ideas that they wanted me to fill out, or just hoops to jump through, basically. And the point wasn't to make the content better or easier to read or more compelling or more click-worthy or better optimized for search. The whole point was just to justify their presence on the content creation team so that they could keep getting paid without really doing any valuable work. So basically, that is why these AI detection tools exist. There's an imaginary problem with AI writing that they've created, and they're trying to add more costs and more complexity and an extra step in the process, which AI writing massively made the content creation process much faster and much more streamlined. And people who are offering these types of detectors are trying to add an extra step back in, make it more difficult, make it take longer again so that they can monetize that. And of course, I wanted to cover this question of, are AI writing detectors bad for freelance writers? And so I've worked with a lot of clients who all are perfectly aware that I use AI writing to help me create content. And most of them have never had any problem with it. And I've also seen a lot of stories and posts on social media from everything from absolute beginner level writers to expert level writers who are asking the community questions like, do I need to worry about AI detectors? My clients are saying that I need to pass the AI detection test, and lots of other questions like that. And ultimately, from everything I've seen, the only reason that you need to worry about passing an AI detection test is if you have a client who requires that your writing pass an AI detection test. However, if that's the case, then personally, I would recommend that you either push back on that and tell them that it's not necessary, or work on finding better clients. Because, as I mentioned before, high quality clients with high performing blogs who can pay the top rates really don't care about whether you write it all yourself by manually pounding your keyboard or whether you used AI to write the entire thing. What they care about is the quality and the results that it's going to get them. Here I just have some basic examples of why AI writing detectors ultimately don't matter. As I mentioned before, when I first started using AI writing, I was charging like a fifth of what I was charging right now, and my own blog was not nearly as successful as it currently is, even though really for the past year I've barely been working on my own blog. I've only published a few new articles because I've just been too busy with other things. But even now, my blog still has good authority, still has good traffic, and most of the articles on it were written with the assistance of AI writing tools like Jasper. And so when I first started using AI, I was able to 4 times my blog publishing speed and 5 times my blog traffic. And that was back in the days of GPT-3. And right now, in July 2023, we're currently using GPT 3.5 and GPT-4, which are much, much more powerful and more effective than GPT-3 ever was. But even back in the days of GPT-3, I was writing a bunch of articles with that, and I was not having any problems. So that just kind of goes to show that there's nothing to worry about there, because the AI writing tools that we're using now are much more sophisticated than the ones that I was using back then, and I still did not have any issues. And another thing that I think I mentioned earlier is that when I started using AI software, I told all of my existing clients and my new clients as I started working with them. And not only did no one initially care about that, I actually used AI to write an article that earned me over $2,000 for the first time. Keep in mind, I was previously charging like $200 to $400 for an article, depending on how long and how complex it was. And shortly after I started using AI, I actually started getting much better clients. And it wasn't long before a fairly long and complex blog post that I wrote, which really didn't take that long because I used Jasper to help me write it, earned me over $2,000 just for that one article. And then more recently, after ChatGPT came out, one of my clients, I guess, had forgotten that I told him that I used AI, and he hired some new SEO manager who started running everything that I wrote through an AI detection tool. And he pointed out to my client that it was being flagged as being like partially AI written or something like that. And my client didn't really know much about AI writing at the time. He was an SEO expert, but he didn't really know much about AI writing. And so my client brought that issue to me, and I just explained to him that it doesn't matter. And anyone that's telling him that this is a big issue is basically wasting his time and money. And not immediately, but after a while, he did start listening to me. And not that long after that, he ended up firing that SEO manager because that person was just trying to make himself seem more important than he was, trying to make himself seem more critical than he was to the process, and ultimately wasting everyone's time as well as my client's money. And one of my newer and biggest clients, who I just started working with about a month ago, they actually hired me specifically because of my proficiency with a specific AI software. They're a startup based in the United States, so they have lots of funding. They have a lot of employees and freelancers that work with them. And they decided that they wanted someone who was an expert in AI writing because they knew, based on everything that they had seen, that AI was very effective and that it could make a great writer much more efficient and much faster at producing content. So they actually went out and they looked at all the different AI writing tools and they found the one that they thought was the best. And then they looked on that tool's page of certified experts. And I was actually the original certified expert for that particular software. It's called Phrase. I was the first one to pass their certification test. And so that client saw my profile on that website. They reached out to me. We talked. They looked at some of my previous work and they ended up hiring me. And it's an excellent client. I'm really enjoying working with them. And I'm doing a lot of work for them, which I am very well compensated for. And the last thing I wanted to mention here is that subreddits and Facebook groups and every social media platform that has discussions basically is full of newbies worrying about AI detectors and experienced professionals telling them not to worry about AI detectors. Because the thing is, it really just is a non-issue. As I mentioned before, if you have a client who is requiring that your writing pass an AI detector, then that's a separate issue. But I've actually seen multiple posts on Reddit from content writers who write everything by hand. They literally type every word that they're submitting to their clients, and then their clients are taking their 100% human written content, running it through an AI detector, and then it's coming back as like 60% AI written, and they're saying, you need to redo this because it says it was written by AI. And so that, I mean, if nothing else was proof that this doesn't matter, then that is obviously proof, because these tests are just as fallible as the initial tools are. They're not telling you anything important. And ultimately, again, the search engines just don't care. The only thing that search engines and customers and clients and leads and visitors to your website and potential buyers, the only thing that anyone cares about is the quality of the writing and the results that it gets. So just to go over a few final points, I want to reassert that Google and other search engines and tech companies do not punish AI writing. They only want content and copy to be high quality and extremely valuable to the readers. If you can do that, then you'll be fine. Also, clients who require 100% human writing and who use AI detection tools to try and tell you whether or not your writing is good enough usually don't know what they're talking about. And oftentimes it's not actually the client who's trying to enforce this. It's like some middle manager, content manager person who, again, is trying to make themselves seem more critical to the process than they actually are. And so depending on your relationship with the client, you might be able to push back on that and discuss it with them and convince them that it's not a big deal. Or you might want to just go along with it, or you might want to move on and find a new client. And finally, personally for me, I would say that if you want to work with a client who requires 100% human writing as verified by a specific detection tool, that's up to you. And if you're going to do that, then you probably shouldn't use AI writing because doing so would be dishonest. But I'm going to tell you right now, these kinds of clients are seldom worth the hassle, because businesses that make money using content and copy know that the only thing that matters is that people find the content, that people enjoy reading the content, and that the content prompts them to take an action, such as signing up for the email list or buying something or whatever it might be. So that is my overall take on AI writing content detection tools. It might be a little bit controversial, I don't know. But again, I've been in this game for a long time, and I'm also in a lot of very high-level communities with expert SEOs and expert writers, and no one who I respect is saying that you need to worry about content detector tools. So don't worry about that. Just focus on creating amazing, easy-to-read, compelling content, and you will be way ahead of 90% of your competitors.